It is a story as old as time. A hero that rises up to become a better person, to save the people around him or her. This is the story of a superhero. No, this is the early 90s, and this is Marvel. This is the story of a slacker who stumbles upon a costume and decides to make some money. When we come back, we're talking Green Goblin. Let's go. Coming to you live from Punch the Timeline Studios. Once again, it's me, it's Jarrod. How's it going, everybody? With the wave of nostalgia that hit all of us from Spider-Man No Way Home, which I did see. That's the first movie I've seen in 2 years. For some reason, when I came home from seeing that, I started thinking about the performance of Willem Dafoe, who really stole the show in this. I know everybody's all about other people. I won't even go with spoilers in case there's some person who doesn't know what happens in Spider-Man No Way Home. But for some reason, it made me think of the series that we're going to talk about today. There was a book in 1995 from Marvel Comics called Green Goblin. This book is not about Norman Osborn. This book is not about Harry Osborn. This book is not about Bart Hamilton. This book is about Phil Urich. Who the hell is Phil Urich? Well, that's what I'm here to tell you about. This is not one of my comic Nirvana moments. This is just a random series that popped into my head, and I thought I need to share this with my audience. The year was 1995. Marvel was doing everything different. And we will get to the differences in a minute. But this book is Green Goblin, written by Tom DeFalco, who you might know as Marvel's former editor-in-chief, had a big run on Spider-Girl. Art by Scott McDaniel, who had done some work on Daredevil and then moved on to Nightwing. Guest artists, including Derek Robertson of Transmetropolitan fame and The Boys. He actually is the artist on issue number 8. And Josh Hood takes over on issue number 11. Like I said, 13 issues, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. Because this is a book that unless you're a super Spider-Man fan, and I am not, this might be a book you've never heard of. Now, let's set the stage here. Who in the hell is Phil Urich? Well, Phil is the nephew of Ben Urich, one of the reporters at the Daily Bugle. Phil is not a good person. In fact, this book starts out with Phil Urich finding out that some friends of his and some not good people are trashing his former place of employment because he got fired. Now, Phil becomes an intern at the Daily Bugle for his uncle, and his uncle is writing a book on the legacy of the Green Goblin, and it features Norman and Harry Osborn, who at this time are both dead, as they should be. Norman Osborn dead from the accident in the 70s. Harry Osborn dead from sacrificing his life to save Spider-Man and that epic Sal Buscema Spectacular Spider-Man 200 book. Highly recommended. So there has not been a Green Goblin in some time in this book. Now, how does a slacker like Phil Urich find the Green Goblin costume? He doesn't just throw it on. No, he stumbles upon it. While doing some research on the Osborn family, he stumbles upon this warehouse that was owned by Harry. Again, he's not with good people, so these people find out that he knows stuff about the Osborns, and they, of course, want to find it and, pilfer through it and see if they can get something for profit. Rico the Sicko being his main nemesis on a street level. During the break-in of the warehouse, his uncle is found pilfering around. And so to not get himself and his uncle killed, he kills the lights and initiates an escape for both of them. But while trying to run away from these thugs, he stumbles into this hidden room. And this hidden room contains a new generation Green Goblin suit. Now, are we doing a Spider-Man parallel here? Because here we have a hero who didn't think he was going to be a hero with his Uncle Ben, and he stumbles into this room, gets scared by a rat, and falls backwards and is covered in chemicals. And what do you do when you're covered in chemicals and you've found some supervillain gear? You just say the hell with it and you put the mask on, you suit up and you go. Now this mask does something to him. The mask, with the combination of the chemicals, gives him super strength. It also screws with his mind because he speaks often about the pain of putting on this mask. But he keeps going back to it. And that is another plot that's sprinkled throughout the series. So once he escapes with the new goblin gear and gets his uncle free and clear, he does what any person would do when they decide they're going to take up the mantle of a supervillain. He's going to capitalize on it and try and make some money. That's right, it's the mid-90s and we've got ourselves a slacker. He's a college dropout. He's not doing too well at the old intern gig. So why not try to make some money being a superhero, a reformed Green Goblin? Now, from a PR perspective, this is not the greatest idea because everyone automatically is going to think, there goes that murderer, the Green Goblin. So cameos galore in this series. Starts out by visiting the New Warriors, offering his services to them, and he's accepted, but the speech that Justice gives him about what the New Warriors do kind of kills the vibe, and he leaves. Again, with this book taking place in the 90s, you're going to have some guest stars. And this is 1995, and this is a Spider-Man book. So the most logical guest star for this book should be Spider-Man, right? Wrong. This is during the Clone Saga. So we have our first guest appearance being the Scarlet Spider, Ben Reilly. I'm a Ben Reilly fan. I love Ben Reilly. I don't know what Ben Reilly's up to now. I know how Ben Reilly has been in the past, and I wasn't a big fan. But the concept of starting over with Spider-Man, with a different Spider-Man, that was cool to me. I was all for the Dan Jurgens Ben Reilly book. But that's another story for another time. One of the things on this book is the creative team takes some time to really find their footing. The dialogue is a little clunky at times because you've got a man who's probably in his 40s trying to write hipster or hip 90s dialogue. There are some times where it misses. Also, if you were hanging out with the Scarlet Spider, would you internally refer to him as Scarlet? I certainly wouldn't, but that's what Phil does here. He says, wow, Scarlet's really Scarlet this, Scarlet that. And it just doesn't work for me. But I'm nitpicking here. Now, the art is Scott McDaniel. Scott McDaniel, if you don't know his art, it's unique. That's the best word for it. Scott McDaniel's art is unique. He is the artist, so he's doing pencils and inks on the first couple of issues. And really, Scott McDaniel, at this time, he needs an inker to rein him in. So the art definitely improves when he brings in an inker. Now, going back to Phil's costume, it is a slight variation on the Green Goblin gear. And the mask, in combination with the chemicals he was in, gives him powers. And he has access to this warehouse still. So he has all the sorts of weapons that he adds to his arsenal as the book goes along. It's not just pumpkin bombs and the Goblin glider. Eventually, he gets a drone, which he goes to Radio Shack and buys a controller and uses it to handle it remotely. He also wonders to himself why the mask zaps his brain so much and it hurts so much, but he keeps coming back to it. Besides added strength, another thing that's unique to him is his goblin scream. And it's shown in the book as sound effects, just a ha ha ha, but it starts to build and it really hurts people. And he uses that a couple of times to get himself out of some bad situations. This is a hero, and I'm air quoting here because this is not a good person. This is just a kid trying to make some money, and he's learning. So we're in the book and we're learning with him. And half the time when he's confronted with something, his main way of dealing with things is to de-escalate the situation and call 911 and get the hell away, which is smart, but it's something you didn't see from a hero. And it's kind of odd because you want to see somebody screw up and learn. You don't want to see someone instantly become the best hero in the world. People have got to fail. People have got to learn. But you don't see a lot of growth from Phil. He's trying to make money. He's trying to get the girl at the Daily Bugle to notice him. And of course, he's a moron because there's a girl at the Daily Bugle that he's completely oblivious to. And the other one's just using him to further her journalistic career. So we've got a great supporting cast. We've got a hero and we've got a legacy. And we've got some more guest stars. Daredevil makes an appearance, which is interesting because Scott McDaniel just coming off his run on Daredevil. So it's great. Scott McDaniel is a great Daredevil artist. I say that because he was the artist on Daredevil when I first picked it up. And I just think it's cool. This is Daredevil, however, in the red and yellow costume. Now, he had the 90s costume in the Fall from Grace storyline, and my 90s Marvel is a little rusty, so I don't know why Matt Murdock went to the red and yellow. But in this book, that's what he's wearing. Another guest appearance, of course, is Foggy Nelson, who appears as Liz Osborne's lawyer because she sees a new goblin in town, and she wants to know what's going on, and she wants Ben Urich's notes. You see a lot of Ben Urich, the reporter, balancing journalistic integrity, First Amendment rights. So that's a great part of the book because you see Ben, who is a good reporter and a good man, and his scumbag nephew, who tries to figure out ways to make money. It's an interesting dynamic. Now, I'm going to ask a question, and then we'll pause for a minute. As I take a drink from my Twisted Cape mug, I wonder, what is it about the Spider-Man books that everyone is either a goblin or a spider? Ponder that for a minute. Also, which one would you be? Would you rather be the spider or the goblin? So naturally, we're in a Green Goblin book in the Spider-Man universe. We've had a Spider-Man guest appearance. We've had a Daredevil guest appearance. There's even a Thing guest appearance. And I guess Thing got screwed up in the 90s and had like a deformed face. I don't know what's going on. My 90s Marvel, like I said, is just rusty. We have a Hobgoblin issue. Hobgoblin versus the new Green Goblin. And it shows that there are levels to this game. And our boy Phil Urich is not hanging with Hobgoblin very well. But he does, in the end, get the blessing of Liz Osborne to continue on as the Green Goblin, which is interesting. Because here it is, this mask, this persona that's ruined her life. And she's like, you're okay, man. You saved me and my kid. Go on and try and make the name of Green Goblin one of a hero. Interesting take on that. So to recap, we've had guest appearances. We've had crazy 90s costume changes. And guess what? Here's another 90s Marvel stereotype, the company-wide tie-in. Because there is an issue of Green Goblin, which is an Onslaught tie-in. It is Phil Urich trying his best to help out a New York City that is being attacked by Sentinels. He is a very lower tier hero. So his contribution to this whole battle is fighting one Sentinel, which he inadvertently brings the Sentinel to the Daily Bugle building because he decides to go help out and puts the mask on, and that activates his powers, and the Sentinel catches that. The Sentinel senses that and has to come and decides to come over and investigate because they're killing everything and everyone. So he does his best. In the end, he gets the win. He defeats one Sentinel, which is just a blip on the radar screen of this event because Onslaught was just complete chaos. And then the end of this issue, his costume is damaged. The mask that controls everything, the mask that gives him his powers, is damaged. And that leads us to our final issue, issue number 13. And I want to know, was this canceled? How far in advance was this canceled? Because 1 minute, he's getting the hang of things, and then the next minute, his mask is broken, and then the most bummer of final issues occurs. This issue starts with him realizing that his costume is broken, trying to fix it, getting his friends to try and fix it, and telling him it's a virtual reality thing. And by the way, the depictions of the internet and virtual reality in this series are hilarious because it's 1995. Holy crap, some funny stuff. When he goes to work, he finds out that the Daily Bugle is downsizing and getting rid of all their paid interns. So not only has he lost his costume, he's also been fired. And after witnessing the new Spider-Man, which is Ben Reilly in the new and improved Spider-Man costume, which is when Ben was the one true Spider-Man, he realizes that his time as a hero is over. So he returns the goblin gear back to the warehouse, does the old tried and true Spider-Man dump it in the trash can and walk away bit, and the book ends with him promising to be a better person. This being Marvel, that is not what happens to young Phil. And I would not have known this if I hadn't done a little research on Wikipedia. But the next big storyline for Phil Urich is during Dan Slott's big-time storyline in Spider-Man, where Phil Urich makes an appearance, and he becomes a villain. How did I know? And they pretty much telegraphed it, because he was the guy in the background with the spiky-looking hair, with the scowl on his face, down on his luck, and there he was in the background, reminding the readers that he was once the Green Goblin. And then out of nowhere, which this goes to show that the mask was messing with him all through the Green Goblin series, and he started hallucinating and seeing all the other goblins. So was he damaged so far that it affected him in this storyline? Probably. Because this storyline sees him killing the Hobgoblin and becoming the new Hobgoblin. He uses his lunatic laugh to incapacitate the current Hobgoblin and then kill him, which I believe they retconned to say that it was actually the Hobgoblin's brother in another costume. Because this, like I said, Hobgoblin being a seasoned villain, you wouldn't think that Phil Urich could take him out. But Phil Urich becomes many different goblins as I look at his Wikipedia page. He becomes the Hobgoblin. Apparently he becomes the Goblin Knight. And then why not crown yourself the Goblin King? I've got a lot of reading to do to catch up on Phil Urich. Again, I want you to find the books that make you happy. I want to find the books that give you that moment of bliss, that moment of nirvana, that comic nirvana. If you are a Spider-Man fan, this is a story you might want to check out. It's a very 90s book. It's very dated. So going into that, you got to realize that this is a 90s book. But I don't know that this might supplement your Spider-Man reading if you're a fan of Dan Slott and the big time storyline, which I am still in the middle of reading. One of my goals this year is to read more Marvel books. It was just interesting to see a hero that's like, how can I make money off this? How can I capitalize on this? It's a very 2020 outlook on life. Was Ben Urich an influencer before an influencer was a thing? Probably not, but it's fun to say. It's a hot take that I can put out there. Very clickbait. Was this Marvel hero turned villain an influencer? Click here to find out. As we discussed in our last episode, if you are listening and you like Future State books, send me an email at punchthetimeline@gmail.com with the message Future State. And when these episodes hit that magical number that I'm looking for in plays, I'll pick a winner and I'll send you your choice of Future State books. Coming up next time, when I fly solo, we will be discussing the classic Terminal Velocity, the Flash storyline by Mark Waid that really took off. Make sure to tune into the Punch the Timeline Network for all of our fine quality shows. I have an upcoming episode of the UWC. And don't forget to check out Starman Supper Club, where I review every issue of the Starman book from 1994, an all-time classic that you should start reading. That's your homework. Go check out Green Goblin from 1995. Go find Terminal Velocity by Mark Waid and The Flash. And start reading Starman. Be a part of the Supper Club. Thanks to everybody for listening. This has been a blast. I'm really excited to get back into the swing of things. And like I said, stick with me. We're going to have more content. It's only going to get better. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Timeline Punch. And you can check us out anywhere you find your fine podcasts. Really, reviews, criticisms, compliments. Give me your feedback. Tell me what you want me to read. I'm an open book. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time on the Punch the Timeline Network.